She is now an award-winning blogger, a serial entrepreneur, an expert community builder and transformational coach, helping everyone from plus-size runners to small business owners to get visible and to really make a difference in the world. But don't worry, the fame has not gone to her head much. She still don't talk proper, and she loves a good old knees up. So ladies and gentlemen, starting today's proceedings off the only way she knows how, please stamp your feet and make some noise for the PSA's resident Cockney. It's Julie Greville.
What do you mean you get paid to speak? That's what my mum said to me a few years ago when I first started doing this speaking stuff. You get paid how much? It's all right, isn't it? Have you ever met a speaker that doesn't enjoy speaking? Have you ever met a speaker that doesn't enjoy being paid to speak? Hands up if you would like to make more money in your speaking business without having to chase clients all the time. Keep your hands up if you believe there's more than one way to make money in this business. Phew, that would have been embarrassing, wouldn't it, if you'd all put your hands down. Okay, so first things first, this is not a keynote, okay? This is me sharing some of my observations from the last few years, okay? I want to share with you some of the frustrations that I've had and how those frustrations have helped me to reshape my speaking business. Is that okay with you? Yeah? Okay, so let's see, a few things about me. So many of you will know that I am the founder of a company called Two-Factor Run. So I set up my company in 2010 after coming dead last in a race. I was so slow, I got to the finish line and the finish line wasn't there. They'd packed up and gone home. Okay. But what you may not know is that that's not all that I do. And you know, sometimes in the PSA they say, get known for one thing. Get known for your niche. You know, stand out in the one thing that you do. But being a plus-size marathon runner, and I do have the London Marathon coming up in 3 weeks, that is not the only thing that I do or the only thing that I've ever done. So I actually have a background in community engagement. I've spent 20 years doing all kinds of community engagement programs. And actually at the beginning of this year, I had a bit of a kind of identity crisis because I was sick of people introducing me, sometimes at events like this is Julie, the fat runner, or this is Julie, the plus-size marathon runner. And, it's not the only thing that I do. I've got a number of different businesses, and I was getting frustrated. How do I continue to do the work that I do on Two-Factor Run, which is a business that's still growing, but not be pigeonholed? So I had to really think about what is it that is my superpower? What is the thing that I've been doing my whole life? And I think it's being a rebel. That's what I've been doing. I don't like being told no, or you can't do it that way. And that's the thing that has kind of followed me my whole life. So when I was 8 years old, my local library kicked us out, not even for doing anything bad, they kicked us out for laughing. Laughing, so I thought, fine, I don't want to come to your stinking library anyway. So I set up my own one in my brother's bedroom. And I charged all the kids down the street 50p, and I bought myself a rubber stamp. Oh, the power. And that was the start of my entrepreneurial ways. So that gives you a little bit of kind of context. So you know about me, I want to know who is in the room. So in my experiences of speaking, I think there's kind of, your audience members come into kind of 3 different categories. And I think Celia kind of covered some of this actually in your intro, so thank you. We have the thinkers. Those of you that are sitting here really open, ready to absorb the stuff I'm going to share with you, thinking, yep, I'm open-minded, I'm going to take it all in. Then we have the note takers. Where are all the note takers? Scribbling down frantically. You don't want to miss anything. Oh, there might be a nugget, just one. Then you have the tweeters, and I know Sylvia down here, look, not even looking at me. But it is okay to tweet. It is okay to take photographs of me. In fact, if anybody gets a good photograph of me, which is very unlikely, I will give you a free copy of one of my books. And if you're a bloke thinking, why would I want one of your books, you can give it to your wife. But actually, that might not even, that might not work either. And then we do have this kind of fourth category, which are the people that are like this. And I'm just looking around. I knew, Stuart, I knew it would be you, but I didn't want to pick on you. These are the skeptics. These are the ones sitting there going, oh yeah, what can you teach me about speaking? But actually, thinking about it, there is also a fifth category who has also been mentioned, but we don't feed the trolls, do we? Mr. Heckler over there. Okay, so I'm going to be sharing with you three observations, three things that I think we could all be doing, not only as speakers, but in whichever kind of type of business that we run, okay? So the first one is disruption. Okay, to disrupt the industry that we're in. Now, you know, I've only been in the PSA for a few years, 4 or 5 years, so, you know, I don't have the knowledge that some of you do about the industry. Okay? But my observations are that in many other industries, they're being disrupted by new technologies, okay? And people are finding new and exciting ways of doing things. And, you know, I was very frustrated in my early days of the PSA because I'd see these brilliant keynoters and I'd see them travelling around the world with these luxurious lifestyles and making loads of money. And I used to think, when's it my turn? You know, I'd tick things off. Must get a show reel, tick. Must get a mastermind, tick. And still these big gigs weren't coming to me. So it got to the point where I was just like, well, you know, if I'm having to kind of seek permission and get through these kind of gatekeepers of the speaker bureaus and the bookers, you know, if that's not going to happen, how long am I going to be in this industry before it starts paying out? Not just in terms of money, but in terms of the impact I wanted to make on this, in this world. So that's when I started thinking about how can I disrupt? How can I disrupt, not necessarily the industry, but how can I do things differently? So I'm going to give you some kind of examples of perhaps other sectors where that disruption is happening. So just play along. I'd like you to close your eyes and picture what a marathon runner looks like. Close your eyes. Looking at me is not going to help. Okay. Close your eyes and picture what does a runner look like. Chances are they look like somebody like this guy here. Out of curiosity, anybody know who this guy is? Okay, so this guy here is the founder of Parkrun. By show of hands, anybody that's done Parkrun before? Yep, a few people. So his name is Paul Sinton Hewitt, and he founded a thing called Parkrun, which absolutely disrupted the running world. The fact is, that is the kind of runner that most people associate with the image of running. Tall, slim man in short shorts. They do not picture somebody like me or somebody like Samara. Now, this is a lady that goes to a running club that I sometimes go to, and she was sick and tired of turning up to races and people saying, oh, I've never seen a Muslim runner in a hijab. You know, and having to explain herself all the time. So she started up a hashtag called "This is what a runner looks like." So sometimes, you know, there are people out there doing interesting things too. But let's go back to Paul. Paul had this idea many years ago about bringing runners together. Now, at first it started out with him thinking about runners exactly like him. Tall, slim, fast. And he identified a problem. The problem was that there was no races, no fast 5K races for runners. So he started one up himself. So back in 2004, in Bushy Park in West London, he set up a run with 13 runners. 13. It was called the Bushy Park Time Trial. It has gone on to become one of the biggest, most impactful running things in the world. 2019, there are 1,794 park runs worldwide and 3.6 million runners. He disrupted the running world, and he also took it away from what he personally needed. He personally needed somewhere fast to run. Any of you that have been to Parkrun will know that it's a very inclusive kind of thing to experience, and it's, you know, very open to lots of runners, even runners like me. So think about how can you disrupt. And often people will say, you know, my sector, my industry is saturated. There's already people doing what I'm doing. And that may be true. So when it comes to running, you can download a free app, a free Learn to Run app. and have it on your phone. But yet still women will pay me £25 a go to learn how to run with me. So think about how you can offer things that perhaps are in competition and don't make kind of sense. Why would you pay somebody £25 if you can get an app for free? The difference is the app doesn't care whether you run or not, and I do. Okay, so engage. You need to know how to kind of engage people. Now, one of the biggest projects I ever worked on was the London 2012 Games. So I worked for around 8 years in what they called the bid stage, right the way through to games time and beyond. Now, the Olympics is a massive thing, and it kind of got just dumped in East London. We had no choice whether it came or not. And one of the things that I would get kind of commissioned to do was to go into groups in East London to convince people that the Olympics was a good idea. The politicians hadn't managed to do it. The architects who were posh and in suits hadn't managed to do it, so they sent me in. And I would do things like this roadshow. I would, get in a van with a group of people in this big Perspex game, and we'd kind of have conversations about what the employment opportunities would be like and how great the park would be post-Olympics. And I loved that. I loved getting in amongst the stuff. So think about how you can do that too. We don't always have to be kind of high level thinking about stuff. How can you get involved and be around the people in that industry? Now, one of the funniest events I ever went to was the Redbridge Pensioners Forum. Okay, so Redbridge is on the, and you all know about this. So the Redbridge. Well, just you used to live in Redbridge. So Redbridge is at the other end of the Central Line, out in Essex, and I'd been sent along. I was new in my job, Olympic Development Manager for the London Borough of Redbridge, and they said, right, the pensioners want to meet you. They've put you on the agenda. I think I was 2 weeks into the job, so I turned up. And it's a really bad photo, but this is what the Redbridge Pensioners Forum looked like. And I went in, they weren't impressed with me, and I had to present, and then I took questions. And they were so mean to me. They were so horrible. What are you going to do for us? There's nothing in it for us, and all of this kind of stuff. And I was like, they're right. They're right. There are no opportunities. All this stuff is for the youngsters. How do I get them involved? And I made a promise. I said, I can't think of a way to get you involved, but I'll be back. And I'll be back with an idea. And I came back with an idea. And the idea was, what if we got 100 old age pensioners dancing in the opening ceremony? So the Golden Years Dance Troupe was born. Now, it wasn't all plain sailing. There were definitely the men were not on board. So they would bring their lady friends along, and they would sit in the corner just looking at me and scouring. So I went up to these two blokes. One was Jerry and one was John, I think. And I said, how can I get you involved? Well, we don't want to be involved. We don't want to be involved. It's ridiculous. Don't want to dance. I said, so what kind of sports were you into? What kind of boxing? Boxing. So I got them boxing. These two gentlemen went on to be London ambassadors for the Olympic Games. They went on training programmes. They met the Queen. Now, I could have walked away from that meeting and said, it's too hard. I can't engage them. I can't find a way of involving them. So I always say in all of the groups that I run a lot of online communities, there are 3 things that you can do to engage, to ensure engagement. The 3 V's: visibility, vulnerability, and value. You have to show up. You can't do things from afar. You need to be everywhere. You need to be unafraid of getting stuck in. So that's visibility. Vulnerability. You have to be willing to say, I don't know. Can you help me? Can we work on this together? And number 3 is valuable. I promised them I'd get them into the opening ceremony. I didn't quite manage to do that, but we did do a borough-wide tour, and I did get the Queen to come and watch them dance. I think they were happy with that in the end. And then the third thing is about scale. How often do you think, there's only a few, it seems like it sometimes, there's only a few speaker bookers out there, and there's only a few bureaus. And these people are the gatekeepers. These are the people we have to impress so that they will book us. That gives them all the power, okay? There are more audience members who are wanting to hear your topic than there are speaker bookers. So why not go straight to the source? Why not think about ways that we can deliver our content to the people who need it most? I'd like to introduce you to Breda. Now, Breda is one of my clients. I met her not last year, the year before, at the NSA conference in Orlando. And we were just having a cup of tea in one of the breaks, and I said to her, "Oh, so what do you speak on?" And she said, "Oh, well, you know, I don't really speak yet." She said, "But I'm really passionate about caregivers." And I must admit, I rolled my eyes. Well, I kind of did it in my, I did it kind of in my head. Passion, that word, I'm passionate about. And I had this conversation with her. She had been a carer for her 3 disabled children and a carer for her mum, who'd just passed away. She had a part-time job in the University of Michigan in the administration department, but she really wanted to become a speaker. And she said, I've been doing lots of kind of research and, reaching out to speaker bookers, and no one wants to book me. And I said, "Well, why don't you go straight to the carers themselves?" She said, "But they've got no money. They've got no money and no time." So Breda's been working with me for the last year or so in looking at how can we get her brilliant content into the people's hands that need it. And we are working on a mobile phone app called the Caregiver Coffee Break, where caregivers get 15 minutes a day with Breda, who gives them really kind of good advice in terms of looking after themselves so they can continue to look after other people. And we worked out some numbers, and I'm rubbish at numbers, so I've had to write it down. There are 35 million unpaid caregivers in the US. Okay? Rachel, where's Rachel? Rachel, do you know how many caregivers there are in the UK?
I do, there are 5.4 million.
Really? Mel, do you happen to know in Australia where?
Yes, I happen to know that there are 2.7 million.
Wow. And Stephanie, do you know the numbers for Germany? But there are lots of caregivers, and one of the best things that Breda ever said, a buck a piece, that would be a nice bit of change. Okay? So, there are more than one way of making money, but also making impact. But that word, passion, I'm passionate about. But I'm forever meeting kind of, business owners. I'm passionate. I'm like, do you make any money from your passion? No. I'm passionate about Jaffa cakes. I'm passionate about kebabs. I can't make any money from that. So think about how can you harness that passion and get other people that are passionate to create that kind of army, that groundswell. And this, we're talking about concepts. How can we get people on board with the concepts that we have? So I think this talk came out of something that happened last year. So in May, I launched a program that was a bit of a flop. And this happens quite often to me. I pilot things all the time. Some of them kind of, take off and get traction, and others not so much. And I'd kind of placed quite a bit of kind of hope in this program doing well, and it didn't. So I was in a bit of a kind of mess financially, and I thought, gosh, I've got about 3 weeks to make 10 grand to cover some of the things that I needed to at home and in my business. Now, maths is not my strong point, so I was like, right, let's keep it simple. And I think, perhaps somebody from my mastermind might have said, just need to get a couple of keynotes, that'll cover that. And I was thinking, but am I going to really get keynotes in 3 weeks? Can I really kind of make that kind of money immediately? No, but I could go out to my tribe of customers and clients and make the money that way. So I come up with a very simple concept. It was called, really catchy title, 100 Ways. 100 ways. So it was 100 days of tips and tricks about looking after yourself and being healthier and happier, and it cost £100. And I said, I'm looking for 100 women. In 10 days, I'd found my 100 women and I'd made my 10 grand. Okay. Now, what's interesting is that the stuff that I was delivering was the same kind of stuff that I delivered for the probation service, for schools, for school business managers, very similar concepts that I've shared from the stage before. But this was going direct to the people that needed it. And this program was rough around the edges, okay? This was literally me in my front room every day recording a video on my phone. No more, no less, okay? The fact that I'd positioned it as a pilot meant their expectations were quite low. And I made them believe that they were part of a research project, and they were. They were part of a research project, and they wanted to buy into it. So this question around, there are multiple ways of making money. And sometimes we kind of make excuses. We say, we don't have the tech. I don't have the tech, or I don't have the people, the large enough audience. But there is always a way. The question is, what kind of impact do you want to make? How many times have you kind of gone to post on social media and been bored by your own stuff because you're like, everybody knows about it, yet they're still not buying? Very few people know about what you're doing, even if you're active on social media, which is why this text is so small. You can barely see it. So think about kind of how you can be bigger, how you can be more visible, more valuable, and more vulnerable. And I want to kind of leave you with something that's about kind of urgency. Okay, because we come back to these meetings, and I know I did, particularly in the first couple of years of being a PSA member. I would come to these meetings, literally the first 4 or 5, I sat right at the back. I had this real kind of inferiority complex about not being good enough. I didn't dress well enough, I didn't have the right kind of gigs, I didn't really feel like I matched up. So I sat at the back. And, I'd hope that one day I'd have the courage to move forward. And I was waiting for permission. I was waiting to feel like I'm the kind of person that sits up the front. And one day I decided to, and I sat in a seat there, and everything changed for me on that day. Everything changed. I won a book. You never win a book from the back, ever. I won a book. I put my hand up for questions. Something shifted just by me leaning in and engaging from the front. Okay? But there's this thing about urgency. How many meetings are you going to keep coming back to, hoping that you learn something that you can implement? We have everything that we need to be successful in our businesses. Yes, obviously keep coming back, but don't believe that the next meeting stuff is going to be the stuff that helps you to be successful. Everything you need to be successful as a speaker, you already have. Okay? And this is nothing to do with speaking. Who knows who this little girl is? I saw this quote a couple of weeks ago, and it really kind of hit me. Now, I don't really, if I'm being honest, care much about climate change. Sorry. I do recycle, but that's about as much as it gets. But I was meeting a client in Waterloo Station, and all of these youngsters had taken the day off school to protest. And I swear, I was getting really emotional at these banners, at these really quite young, 11, 12-year-olds on the train, really excited to be coming into London. They were piling off of the suburb trains, to get in. This is action, and I can feel it now. I can feel my hairs on the back. That is action. That is people saying, I'm not waiting for permission to be told whether I can engage or not. I'm going to do it anyway. Now, this young girl is a girl called Greta Thornburg. And she started a protest in Sweden about climate change, and she would not be silenced. She was very much instrumental in this big kind of global protest. And she said this. She said, we don't need your hope. We need you to act like your house is burning down, because it is. How many of us have got ourselves into a position in our business where our house is burning down? Hope doesn't get you anywhere. Action does. Allowing yourself to be vulnerable, to share how bad things are, and then to say, right, I've got everything I need, I just need to try something different, change the model, and be fearless in my way of getting my content, my great content, the content that I'm passionate about, the content that changes people's lives, and take that content to the people that really need it. And I think on that note, I am going to shut up again, and leave you with this. Thank you very much.
Thank you so much, Julie.
Oh, absolutely, yeah. Yeah.
Great, thank you so much, Julie. I've just sprung this on her, but I've asked her whether she would take a couple of questions because she has such an interesting, different business model with running so many online communities as you do. Any questions for Julie? Yeah, yes, Liz.
You say be visible online. How much of your day are you actually sitting at your laptop?
So let me tell you the question because we didn't have the microphone. So how much of your day are you sitting at your desk at your laptop?
Very little. People think that I'm on social media all the time. I'm not. I'm just very strategic. And what I do is I empower and inspire and encourage other people to tweet and message on my behalf. You know, the reason that I got branded merchandise in my running business was so that every time there's a big event, and the Brighton Marathon is on today, there will be runners running in my two-factor run tops. Because I don't want to run every marathon there is going. You know, I have a hashtag I blame Julie. I didn't come up with that, somebody else did. And people tweet me for all kind of reasons. You know, I've just signed up for a marathon, hashtag I blame Julie. I've just left my husband, hashtag I blame Julie. You know.
That was me.
But it's a hashtag that was transferable across all of the things that I do. So it's about being smart on social. You don't have to be out there, push, promote. You know, what we tend to do is be like a beacon of stuff. Take my stuff, consume my stuff. Get the engagement and get other people to do it on your behalf.
Lovely, thank you. We've got the microphone over here.
Julie, when you did the 100-day top tips for the 100 people, how long were the videos each day that you did?
Very short, less than 5 minutes. Because understanding my target market is that they're overwhelmed. They're overwhelmed. If I'd said it's going to be a 20-minute video every day, by day 4 they wouldn't have watched them. They were short, manageable, they could watch them on the bus, you know, and it was about setting an intention for the day for them to think about that topic.
Great, thank you.
Thank you. There's a lady right the way over this other side, Jodie. Yeah. This is your workout for today. Brilliant job, Jodie.
Hi, you and I are also in a different mastermind. I know you do some tribe building work. One of my clients is interested. How can they find out more about your tribe building?
Isn't that the best question? Did you plant that?
No, I swear it. So informally, I've been kind of, and many of you in the room will know this, I love working on other people's businesses and helping them to kind of come up with creative ideas of how to have impact. And I realised at the beginning of this year, why don't I kind of do that more formally? So I have built an online community called Tribe Builders, and it's for small business owners, often coaches, experts and speakers, or bloggers, we've got quite a few bloggers, who really want to make more money and more impact. And it's an 8-week programme. The next round is in June. So yeah, come and speak to me if you're interested in that.
That's great. I think I always like to end on a plug. Can we end there? Can we give Julie a huge round of applause? Thanks so much, Julie. Thank you. Well done.